Hey folks, welcome back. I'm going to walk through the Sundown Audio XV310D1 subwoofer and try to give you a clear picture of whether it really lives up to the hype, or if it's just another oversized box on Amazon. I know a lot of you are on the fence when it comes to spending a few $100 on a sub, especially when you hear terms like 5,000 watt peak and 3-inch voice coil tossed around. My goal here is to cut through the marketing, look at the real-world side of things, and let you decide if it fits your car audio plan. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about why a subwoofer of this size can feel like a gamble. You've probably seen the usual dilemma: you want enough low-end thump for your favorite bass-heavy tracks, but you also have limited space, a modest budget, and an existing setup that might not be ready for a 10-inch beast. Most people worry about two things: whether the power rating is realistic for their amplifier, and whether the sub will actually fit in the enclosure they have. With the X10V.3 you're looking at a 5,000 watt peak, 2,500 watt RMS rating, a 1 ohm dual voice coil, and a 30mm Xmax Excursion. Those numbers can be intimidating if you're not used to matching subs to amps. What I found when digging into forums and a few user videos is that the X10 is most often paired with a solid-state or Class D amp that can comfortably push 250 watts RMS per channel. In practice, you don't need to drive it to the full 2,500 watts RMS to enjoy deep, tight bass. Most installers recommend aiming for around 3,040% of the RMS rating to keep the sub feeding cleanly without overheating. That translates to roughly 750-1000 watts of RMS from your amp, which many mid-range brands can provide without breaking the bank. Now, the X10 is a DVC, dual voice coil, design. The 1 ohm load means you have the flexibility to wire it for a 2 ohm or 4 ohm load depending on your amp's capabilities. If you have a single-channel amp that can handle 1 ohm, you can keep the wiring simple and squeeze a little extra juice out of it. But if your amp is more conservative, you'll likely need to wire the 2 voice coils in series to get a 2 ohm load, which most modern amplifiers can handle without issue. The key takeaway is that you need to be comfortable with a bit of wiring work. This isn't a plug-and-play sub. When it comes to enclosure, the X10 is marketed for a small ported box. The 30mm Xmax tells you that the cone can travel quite a distance, which is great for low-frequency extension, but it also means the sub needs a well-designed enclosure to control the airflow and prevent unwanted resonance. Many reviewers have reported that a properly sized sealed box around 1.0 to 1.5 cubic feet works best for everyday street use, while a tuned ported box can give you that extra punch for a competition setting. The downside? Building a custom ported enclosure can be a bit of a DIY project if you don't already have a pre-made box that matches the dimensions. If you're looking for a quick drop-in solution, you might need to buy a pre-made enclosure that's specifically rated for a 10-inch, high excursion sub, something you'll pay extra for. Let's talk about the actual sound. In my listening tests, the X10 delivers a very solid low end that you can feel on a decent highway drive. The 3-inch voice coil is stout enough to handle transients without tearing through the cone, giving you a clean, tight slap when the track drops into sub-bass territory. One practical scenario I tried was driving through a tunnel while playing a modern hip-hop track with deep 60 Hz kicks. The sub filled the cabin without becoming rattly, and the bass stayed controlled even when you crank the volume up to the car's limits. That's a good sign that the motor assembly, specifically the large magnet and the 12 ohm voice coil, does its job of keeping distortion low at higher power levels. On the flip side, you'll notice that the X10 isn't a secret weapon for the absolute deepest subsonic notes. Because it's a 10-inch driver, the fundamental low-frequency response tops out around 3,035 Hz in a well-tuned enclosure. If you're expecting the kind of rumble that you'd get from a 12-inch or larger sub, you might find the X10 a bit shy. That's not a flaw, it's just a characteristic of the size. It does mean that for cars with very small cabin volumes, the sub can sometimes dominate the overall soundstage, making mids and highs feel a little recessed. If your priority is a balanced full-range sound, you might want to pair the X10 with a higher quality crossover that tames excessive low-end. Who should consider buying the X10? First, anyone who already has an amp that can comfortably sit in the 750-1000 watt RMS range and is comfortable wiring a dual-coil sub. If you enjoy tweaking your setup, love the idea of a custom enclosure, and want a